26105, Introduction to the National Electrical Code. Section 2.0.0, Navigating the NEC. Navigate the National Electrical Code. Explain the layout of the National Electrical Code. Use the National Electrical Code to find specific installation requirements. And then there are performance tasks that your instructor will have you do. Use National Electrical Code Article 90 to determine the scope of the National Electrical Code. State what is covered and what is not covered by the National Electrical Code. Find the definition of the term feeder in the National Electrical Code. Look up the National Electrical Code requirements for installing an outlet near a swimming pool. And find the minimum wire bending space required for two 1-aught conductors installed in a junction box or cabinet and entering opposite the terminals. To get the most out of the National Electrical Code, you must understand how it is organized. In this section, you will explore the articles, chapters, parts, and sections that make up the bulk of the National Electrical Code. 2.1.0, Reading the NEC. It will help you understand the National Electrical Code if you look at it while you read this section. There are 3 ways you can access the National Electrical Code. There's free online access to the 2023 edition at https://www.nfpa.org, Codes and Standards, All Codes and Standards, List of Codes and Standards, Detail, Code equals 70. You'll have to accept the terms and you may have to register with a username and email. This online version is not searchable, but you can use the table of contents to go to a chapter or a section. There's a subscription-based online version at link.nfpa.org. If you subscribe to NFPA Link, you get access to the National Fire Protection Association codes and standards, along with additional commentary, visual aids, and references. NFPA Link content is searchable. You can purchase a print edition of the National Electrical Code. At first glance, you might think that the National Electrical Code will be difficult to use. However, it uses a very orderly and logical sequence. Once you become familiar with that, you'll have no trouble finding the information you need. The National Electrical Code begins with Article 90, the introduction, which provides an overview of the National Electrical Code. There are 9 chapters in the National Electrical Code, numbered 1 through 9. They are grouped into the following categories of electrical application. This is a highlight. NEC chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. The first 4 chapters present the rules of the design for the design and installation of electrical systems. They generally apply to all electrical installations. Chapters 5, 6, and 7. These chapters cover special occupancies, special equipment, and special conditions. Rules in these chapters may modify or amend those in any of the first 7 chapters. NEC Chapter 8, this chapter covers various types of communications systems. It's not subject to the requirements of NEC Chapters 1 through 7 unless the requirements are specifically referenced in Chapter 8. Chapter 9, this chapter contains tables that are referenced in other chapters in the NEC. They identify when certain rules must be applied or how to apply them. Informative Annexes A through K. These annexes contain helpful information, but they're not mandatory. NEC Section 90.3 Code Arrangement explains how the code is divided into chapters. NEC Figure 90.3 Code Arrangement illustrates the sections. Now that you understand what chapters are included in the NEC, it's important to recognize how each of them are organized and divided. Each chapter is divided into articles, parts, and sections. Articles. NEC chapters 1 through 8 are divided into articles. Articles are numbered. The first number is the chapter number. Therefore, NEC Article 250, Grounding and Bonding, is NEC Chapter 2. Parts. Each article is divided into parts. Parts are numbered with Roman numerals. So NEC Article 250, Part 2, System Grounding, is the second part of NEC Article 250. Sections. Each part is divided into sections. Sections are numbered using the article number, a period, and then the section number. Sections may be broken down into subsections using letters, and the subsections may be broken down using numbers. In this book and in other places, you'll see this written as NEC section 250.20A3. Within each section, you'll find the text of the specific rule. The NEC defines rules as mandatory or permissive. Mandatory rules contain the words shall or shall not. Oh, well, that's got to be a highlight. Mandatory rules contain the words shall or shall not and must be obeyed. Permissive rules are those that identify actions that are allowed but not required. They are seen as shall be permitted and shall not be necessary. In addition, to help you find what you need in the NEC uses a consistent parallel numbering system. That means from chapter to chapter, similar sections have the same number. Like dot 10 is uses permitted and dot 12 is uses not permitted in a lot of the articles. Exceptions tell you when a code does not apply. They are in italics. There used to be an exception to every rule, and they're trying to get away from that. They're trying to write the exceptions into the rule, but you'll still see exceptions. They'll tell you when you can or cannot do something, and then they'll say, there is an exception. Under this certain circumstance, you don't have to do this, or you can do something different. Informational notes give you an explanation, refer you to another section, or provide tips. They're informational, not requirements. They may be shaded in gray or indented. Tables provide specific information about application requirements such as wire sizes, box sizes, or motor types. Exhibits are usually diagrams that illustrate a rule. Figures may be included to help you visualize an application. Examples are provided in the Informative Annex D. Revision symbols, that dot, you see the dot? You'll also notice that some of the text has different formatting or symbols next to it. These visual cues mark things that changed from the previous edition. See Figure 5. Shaded text. Shaded text identifies revisions from the previous edition. When this symbol comes before a section number, it means the section was revised. And when this symbol is to the left of a table or figure number, it means that the table or figure was revised. A dot indicates where one or more paragraphs of a section have been deleted. They were there, but now they're not. So there's a dot telling you that it's been taken out. There's something missing. And this N indicates new articles, sections, tables, and figures. 2.1, oops, where did we go? 2.1.1, using the National Electrical Code. Now is a good time to start looking up information in the NEC. In NEC section 90.5, you'll find information about mandatory rules, permissive rules, and explanatory material. This is important information that will help you understand how to use the code in your work. If you have access to the National Electrical Code online, use the table of contents or the search box to locate National Electrical Code section 90.5. In print, look at the top of the page to find the sections. When you find it, read the code. This is highlighted. NEC section 90.5A, mandatory rules use the words shall or shall not. They must be followed exactly as written. So let's take a look at what that looks like. They're saying that you can get this pre-version, but it's not searchable. So here's 90.5 mandatory rules, permissive rules, and explanatory materials. I think we looked at this when we looked in the hard copy book. Mandatory rules of this code are those that identify actions that are specifically required or prohibited and are characterized by the use of the terms shall or shall not. Permissive rules of this code are those that identify actions that are allowed but not required, are normally used to describe options or alternative methods, and are characterized by the use of the terms shall be permitted and shall not be required. Explanatory materials such as references or other standards referenced or related sections of this code or information related to a code rule is included in this code in the form of informational notes or an informational annex, unless the standard reference includes a date. The reference is to be considered as the latest edition of the standard. Such notes are informational only and are not enforceable as required by this code. NEC section 90.5B, permissive rules include the phrases such as shall be permitted or shall not be required. They're allowed but not required. They typically cover options or alternative methods. And then 90.5C is explanatory materials, refers to informational notes or annexes. Note, be aware that local ordinances may amend requirements of the National Electrical Code. This means that a state, city, or county may have additional requirements, exceptions, or prohibitions that must be followed in the jurisdiction. Always check with the authority having jurisdiction for the local regulations. 2.1.2, Exploring NEC Chapter 1, General. The National Electrical Code, although carefully organized, is highly technical. It uses many technical words and phrases. To understand the rules, you must understand the terms. You'll find definitions for all terms in the NEC Article 100. I don't like that last sentence because you don't always find definitions for all terms in NEC Article 100. Sometimes the definition is contained in the point 2 section of the article. If there's something that's specific to that article that isn't found elsewhere, you may find it only in the article. Like Article 215 used to include festoon lighting, and 215.2 was where you found the definition of festoon lighting. I don't know if that's still the case. It may have been moved to Article 100. But there are other places in the code where you will find definitions. And there are phrases in the code that may not be defined in Article 100. This thing jumped here. 2.1.4, Exploring NEC Chapter 3, Wiring Methods and Materials. Wait a minute, what happened to Chapter 2? Did we do Chapter 2? Oh, excuse me. 2.1.3, Exploring NEC Chapter 2, Wiring and Protection. NEC Chapter 2 discusses wiring design and protection. You'll need this information often. If you encounter a question related to the installation of a conventional electrical system, this chapter should provide the solution. So Article 200 is information on the use and identification of the ground-dead conductor. That's the usually identified by the white insulation, the grounded conductor. NEC Articles 210 and 215, provisions and requirements for branch circuits, their ratings and required outlets, and the installation and overcurrent protection requirements for feeders. Article 220, the requirements for calculating branch circuit, feeder, and service loads. It includes the calculation methods for farm loads. Articles 225 and 230, outside branch circuits, feeders, and service installation requirements. And Article 235 is branch circuits, feeders, and services over 1,000 volts, alternating current, or 1,500 volts, direct current. Article 240, requirements for overcurrent protection and overcurrent protected devices. It includes the standard ratings for fuses and fixed trip circuit breakers. Article 240, Part 9 covers the overcurrent protection for installations over 1,000 volts nominal. The standards ratings and fuse sizes is 240.6. If you're ever interested to look it up, if you want to know all of the standard sizes of circuit breakers, it's 240.6. NEC Article 242, requirements for surge protective devices, 1,000 volts or less, and surge arresters at 1,000 volts nominal or less. NEC Article 245, overcurrent protection for systems rated over 1,000 volts AC or 1,500 volts DC. NEC Article 250 is grounding and bonding, requirements for grounding and bonding electrical systems. It lists the systems required, permitted, and not permitted to be grounded and provides the requirements for grounding connection locations. It also covers accepted methods of grounding and bonding, including types and sizes of grounding and bonding conductors and electrodes. You never want to have a difference of potential when we're talking about voltage as a difference of potential. And you don't want a difference of potential between, let's say, your kitchen sink and the refrigerator. Because then if you touch the kitchen sink and the refrigerator, you could get a tingle, or much worse, you could be knocked down to the floor. You want to make sure that they're at the same potential. So all of the water piping in your house, the copper pipes, they're all taken to earth ground. They're taken to the same zero potential as the electrical system. That keeps you safe. Breakdown of NEC Chapter 2, Wiring and Protection. You have wiring, you have protection. Under wiring, you have Article 200, use and identification of the ground dead conductor. Article 210, branch circuits. Article 215 is feeders. Article 230 is services. Article 220 are calculations. Article 225 are outside branch circuits and feeders. Protection, so NEC Article 240, overcurrent protection. Over voltage protection, 242, and grounding and bonding, 250. So use and identification of grounded conductors, Article 200. We might look at that sometime. (2.1.4) Exploring NEC Chapter 3, Wiring Methods and Materials. NEC Chapter 3 lists the rules on wiring methods and materials. The materials and procedures used on a particular system depend on the type of building construction, the type of occupancy, the location of the wiring in the building, the type of atmosphere in the building or in the area surrounding the building, and mechanical factors. Note that the general requirements for conductors and wiring methods that form an integral part of the manufactured equipment are not included in the requirements of the code per NEC section 300.1b. And just like we're reading in our Article 90, where it said inspection, it said that you need not inspect the internal wiring of something that has been approved by a nationally recognized testing laboratory. This is the same situation. Table 2, wiring methods and materials. Article 300 is general requirements for all wiring methods and materials, including information such as minimum cover requirements and permitted wiring methods for areas above suspended ceilings. Article 305 is general requirements for wiring methods and materials for systems rated over 1,000 volts or 1,500 volts DC. NEC Article 310, notice it's highlighted. It describes acceptable conductors for the wiring methods contained in NEC Chapter 3. And Articles 312 and 314 rules for boxes, cabinets, conduit bodies, meter sockets, enclosures, and raceway fittings. There was a question in the performance profile that said to find in the code book where the spacing requirement for two one-odd conductors entering a cabinet. You would find that in Article 312. We'll look at that later. Outlet boxes vary in size and shape, and depending on their use, the size of the raceway, the number of conductors entering the box, the type of building construction, and the atmospheric conditions of the area. These articles should answer most questions on the selection and use of these items. Article 315 is medium voltage conductor cable, cable joints, cable terminations, and Articles 320 through 340 are cables of one or more conductors such as non-metallic sheath cable and metal-clad cable. Article 342 through 356 are conduit wiring systems such as rigid and flexible metal conduit, non-metallic conduit, which is PVC. Articles 358 through 362 are tubing wiring methods such as electrical metallic and non-metallic tubing. Articles 366 through 398, other wiring methods such as busways, wireways, underfloor raceways. NEC Article 392 covers cable trays, that's highlighted. Article 393 covers low voltage suspended ceiling power distribution systems. So general requirements for wiring methods and materials is NEC Article 300. 2.1.5 Exploring NEC Chapter 4 Equipment for General Use. NEC Chapter 4 lists the rules for using and installing equipment such as cords, cables, and wires. It also covers receptacles, switches, and electric appliances. I apologize right now. I'm just reading this to you. I mean, I really have nothing to add to it. I have no anecdotes. I don't have any special. So it's pretty straightforward. And again, I know that once you get into that code book and you start reading it, there are going to be a lot of things you don't understand. Anything you don't understand, write it down and ask your instructor or your teacher. Ask them about it. If you can't find the answer in Google, if you can't find an answer that you understand through your instructor, you can always write it in the comment section of this video, and I'll try to give you an answer. Other people can also answer you. If they're online and they see it, they might just comment below yours, responding to your comment. They might find the answer and give it to you. But the more you're exposed to the National Electrical Code, the more you'll understand. And the more you understand, the more you'll want to read it. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy kind of a thing. So NEC Article 400 is the use and installation of flexible cords and cables, including the trade name, type, letter, wire size, number of conductors, conductor insulation, outer covering, and use of each type. Article 402 is fixture wires. You're not allowed to run those fixture wires through walls or ceilings, partitions of any kind. So if you're running under cabinet lights, those wires have to either be exposed or you have to use an approved method to go into the wall. And it really should be protected by some kind of a raceway. Article 404, the requirements for use and installation of switches, switching devices. Article 406 are receptacles. Article 408, the requirements for switchboards, switchgear, and panel boards used to control light power circuits. Article 410 is the installation requirements for luminaires in various locations. A luminaire is a light. The National Electrical Code has gone international. Over in Europe, there are a lot of countries that call them luminaires. We still call them lighting fixtures, but the National Electrical Code is trying to get away from the use of the term fixture. They call them luminaires, so that's what we'll call them, luminaires. Those are lights. NEC Article 422, the use of electric appliances in any occupancy, including kitchen appliances, heating appliances, cord and plug connected equipment, space heating, all of those. Article 424 covers fixed electric space heating equipment, including heating cable, unit heaters, boilers, central systems, and other approved equipment. Article 430, that's motors, electric motors, including electrical connections, motor controls, and overload protection. Articles 440 through 460 are air conditioning and refrigeration equipment, generators, transformers, phase converters, capacitors. Article 480 is the requirements related to battery-operated electrical systems, including storage batteries used in standby emergency lighting systems. Article 495 is industrial control panels, low-voltage lighting, industrial process, and pipeline heating equipment. I'm sure that NCCER, they do not expect you to walk away from this chapter 26.105 knowing everything about the code book. This is just an introduction to the National Electrical Code, and again, you can study it for years, literally. There are people who pore over the articles in the code book, and they debate them, and they are on code making panels, and you can really become consumed by it. It can become not just a hobby, but a passion if you're into that kind of thing. Me, I wasn't. I learned the code because I was an electrician, but I wasn't into debating the different codes or trying to find obscure rules in the code book. Some people really are into that. Uh, 2.1.6, Exploring the NEC, Chapter 5, Special Occupancies. So 1 through 4, Chapters 1 through 4 apply generally to all installations. And Chapter 5 is Special Occupancies. NEC Chapter 5 covers special occupancy areas. These are areas where sparks or heat generated by equipment may cause an explosion or fire. The hazard may be due to the atmosphere of the area or the presence of a volatile material in the area. Commercial garages, aircraft hangars, service stations, these are typical special occupancy locations. So they'll talk about Class 1, Class 2, Class 3 divisions. NEC Article 500, the types of special occupancy atmospheres where an explosion is possible because of the presence of something in the atmosphere. Article 5.1 specifically talks about Class 1, areas with ignitable gases or vapors, areas containing flammable gases or vapors in the air. Class 1 areas include paint spray booths, dyeing plants where hazardous liquids are used, gas generator rooms, filling stations, anything like that. Anywhere where you're using anesthetizing in hospitals, anything that is a gas or a liquid that can be volatile. Article 502 is Class 2 areas, areas where combustible dust is present, such as grain handling and storage plants, dust and stock collector areas, and sugar pulverizing plants. These are areas where, under normal operating conditions, there may be enough combustible dust in the air to produce explosive or ignitable mixtures. NEC Article 503 is Class 3 areas, areas that are hazardous because of the presence of easily ignitable fibers or other particles in the air. Although not in large enough quantities to produce ignitable mixtures, Class 3 locations include cotton mills, rayon mills, and clothing manufacturing plants. It's dangerous if there is a spark. The spark could ignite the dust in the air or the fibers in the air. They call them fibers and flyings. NEC Articles 511 and 514, they regulate garages and fuel dispensing locations where volatile or flammable liquids are used or handled or stored. NEC Article 520 regulates the theaters and similar occupancies where fire and panic can create hazards to life and property. That's a highlight. Projection rooms and adjacent areas must be properly ventilated and wired for the protection of operating personnel and others using this area. And then Article 590 is guidance for all temporary construction installations. Two 2.1.7, Exploring the NEC Chapter 6, Special Equipment. NEC Chapter 6 provides the requirements for various types of special equipment not covered in other chapters of the NEC. This is highlighted. NEC Article 600 covers the installation of conductors, equipment, and field wiring for electric signs, retrofit kits, and outline lighting. Article 604 lists requirements for manufactured wiring systems. Article 610 covers the installation of electrical equipment and wiring used with cranes and hoists. Article 620 covers the installation of electrical equipment and wiring used with elevators, dumbwaiters, escalators, and moving walks. The manufacturer is responsible for most of this work. The electrician usually furnishes a feeder terminating in a disconnecting means in the elevator equipment room. The electrician may also be responsible for a lighting circuit to a junction box midway in the elevator shaft for connecting the elevator cage lighting, cable, and exhaust fans. Article 630 regulates electric wiring equipment. It's normally treated as a piece of industrial power equipment requiring a special power outlet. There are special conditions that apply to the circuit supplying welding equipment that are outlined in this article. Article 640, wiring for sound recording and similar equipment. This type of equipment normally requires low voltage wiring. Special outlet boxes or cabinets are usually provided with the equipment, but some items may be mounted in or on standard outlet boxes. Some sound recording systems require direct current, which is supplied by rectifying equipment, batteries, or motor generators. Low voltage alternating current comes from relatively small transformers connected on the primary side of a 120-volt circuit within the building. 2.1.8. You know what they didn't say was Article 680 is swimming pools and spas and hot tubs. 2.1.8, Exploring NEC Chapter 7 Special Conditions. In most commercial buildings, the NEC and local ordinances require a means of lighting public rooms, halls, stairways, and entrances. There must be enough light to allow the occupants to exit from a building if the general lighting is interrupted. Exit doors must be clearly indicated by illuminated exit signs. NEC Chapter 7 covers the installation of emergency and legally required standby systems. So if the power goes out in a building, you have to have emergency lighting. Sometimes those exit lights have batteries internal, so all the power can go out and they'll still light up and give you enough illumination that you can exit the building safely. Emergency and standby circuits are arranged so they can automatically transfer to an alternate source of current, usually storage batteries or engine-driven generators. An alternative in some occupancies is to connect them to the supply side of a main service. In doing so, disconnecting the main service switch will not disconnect the emergency circuits. NEC Chapter 7 also covers fire alarms and a variety of other equipment, systems, and conditions that are not easily categorized elsewhere in the NEC. 2.1.9, Exploring Chapter 8 Communications Systems. This is highlighted. It says, NEC Chapter 8 is a special category for wiring associated with electronic communication systems, including telephones, radios, televisions, satellite dishes, network-powered broadband systems, and community antenna television and radio distribution systems. 2.1.10, Exploring NEC Chapter 9 Tables. NEC Chapter 9 contains detailed tables along with extraordinary notes, or explanatory notes. These tables cover topics such as conduit bends, raceway fill, and conductor conductor dimensions. You'll become very familiar with these tables as you proceed through your electrical training. Chapter 9, Table 1 is conduit fill. That's where all the other tables on conduit fill are referenced. They're referenced from Table 1. That tells us one conductor, two conductors, and more than two conductors in a raceway, what the fill is. 2.1.11, Informative Annexes A through K. Informative Annexes A through K provide informational material and examples that you will find helpful to apply NEC requirements. So Informative Annex A is a list of product safety standards. These standards provide further references for requirements that are in addition to the National Electrical Code. Informative Annex B is information for determining ampacities of conductors under engineering supervisions. Informative Annex C is the conduit fill tables for multiple conductors of the same size and type within the accepted raceways. This is highlighted. Informative Annex D are examples of calculations for branch circuits, feeders, services, and loads. So when you're studying Article 220 on calculations, you want to reference Annex D because it will give you examples of the math. Informative Annex E is information of types of building construction Annex F is information on critical operations power systems. Annex G is information on supervisory control and data acquisition systems. Annex H, requirements for administration and enforcement of the NEC. The text of this annex is a model law for a local jurisdiction to use. Annex I, recommended torque tables for all, Underwriters Laboratory Standards 486A and B. Annex J is the ADA requirements for accessible design, that's Americans with Disabilities Act. Annex K is the use of medical electrical equipment in dwellings and residential board and care occupancies. 2.2.0, how to find specific installation requirements. This is highlighted. Step 1, familiarize yourself with Article 90, 100, and 110. This will help you understand the material in the NEC and the definitions of the terms. Step 2, open the table of contents at the beginning of the NEC. Step 3, locate the chapter that focuses on the category you need. Step 4, find the articles about your specific application. Step 5, go to the page indicated. Each application will begin with a bold heading. 2.2.1, how to find rules for installing type SE cable, that's service entrance. Suppose you're installing type SE cable, service entrance cable, on the side of a home. You know the cable must be secured, but you're not sure of the spacing between the cable clamps. To locate this information, use the following steps. Open the NEC table of contents and follow down the list until you find the appropriate category, such as NEC Article 230, Services. Alternatively, use the index at the end of the NEC. So you're going to find it in Chapter 3. That's the Build section, Plan, Build, Use. Go to Chapter 3. Go to the page where the article begins. They're saying Article 230 is Services. Locate NEC Section 230.51, Mounting Supports. Locate subsection A, Service Entrance Cables. It states that service entrance cables must be supported by straps or other approved means within 12 inches of every service head, gooseneck, or connection to a raceway or enclosure, and at a spacing of no more than 30 inches. So within 12 inches of the gooseneck and at least every 30 inches. 2.2.2, how to find rules for installing track lighting. Step 1, look up the definition of track lighting under Lighting Track in the NEC Article 100. Open the NEC table of contents and find the chapter that contains information about the general application on which you're working. NEC Chapter 4, Equipment for General Use, covers track lighting. Step 3, now look at the article that fits the specific category on which you're working. In this case, it's Article 4.10, covers luminaires, lamp holders, and lamps. Locate the part within NEC Article 4.10 that deals with a specific application. For this example, refer to Part 14, Track Lighting. Go to the page listed. Go to NEC Section 410.150 and read the information. Note that NEC Section 410.150C, locations not permitted, states that lighting track cannot be installed where concealed. Since the track lighting is to be installed behind a curtain, this sounds like an NEC violation. You need to check further. Look up the term concealed in the NEC Article 100. It says that concealed means rendered inaccessible by the structure or finish of the building. Although the track lighting may be out of sight if the curtain is drawn, it will still be readily accessible for maintenance. Consequently, the track lighting is not concealed per the NEC definition. When you use the NEC to determine electrical installation requirements, remember that you'll usually need to refer to more than one section. Sometimes the NEC itself refers you to other articles and sections. Eventually, you'll become familiar enough with the NEC to know which other sections pertain to the installation at hand. Other NFPA codes. In addition to the National Electrical Code, NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, also publishes many other codes. Two that are of interest to you are NFPA 70E, the standard for electrical safety in the workplace, and NFPA 70B, recommended practice for electrical equipment maintenance. NFPA 70E provides safe work practices to avoid shock, electrocution, arc flash, and arc blast. NFPA 70B provides direction for performing electrical tests, inspection, and maintenance of procedures. Both documents are excellent resources for the electrical professional. So here's Figure 7 NEC references for industrial, commercial, and residential power. This just shows a bunch of different articles that pertain to mobile homes, mobile home parks, transformers, lighting in the attic. When do you need to have lighting in the attic? Well, if you have any equipment stored in the attic, you have to have a light. You have to have a receptacle within, I think, 5 feet of that electrical equipment. And the light switch has to be within 3 feet of the access hole. Okay. 2.0.0 section review. Information on calculating branch circuit loads can be found in Article 220. Everything you want to know about calculations. Article 220. Where in the NEC Article 406 can you find information on installing receptacles in damp or wet locations? In a question like this, I just go ahead and take your code book and look up 406.3, 0.9, 0.5, and 0.12 and see where you find information on installing receptacles in damp or wet locations. Article 406. Let's see if we can find Article 406. Let's go to Chapter 4. 406, receptacles and cord connectors, and then they gave us a couple of options here. They said 0.3, 0.5, 0.9, or 0.12, and we're looking for information about installing receptacles in damp locations. So 406.3, receptacle rating and type. Let's go to the next page. 405. Where's 405? Ooh, let's go one more page. Okay. 405. Receptacle mounting. Let's go to 406 and see what it tells us. If it was easy enough for me to show you my code book, I would. But receptacle face plates, cover plates, no. And then what it said, receptacles in damp or wet locations, 406.9, receptacles in damp or wet locations. Like I say, when they ask you a question like that, they give you 4 possible answers. Look at the answers and you'll find it. So 406.9 is for receptacles mounted in damp or wet locations. This concludes 26105, Introduction to the National Electrical Code. I know we spent a lot of time on it. We barely scratched the surface. There's a lot of information in that code book. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to read it on your own. And when you find something you don't understand, write it down and ask your instructor. Google it. Look online. See what you can find. If nothing else, leave a comment in the comment section of this video and I'll try to answer any of your questions. I don't know if I'll be able to answer all of them, but I'll certainly try to give them some time. Thank you. I hope you got a lot out of this. If you did, please consider giving me a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you. Hey, this is Brian Young. If you liked my video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. I'll see you on the next video.